I was just overcome with emotion, like bawling my eyes out, like uncontrollable tears just streaming out of my eyes. You know when you're like I was literally like that. And I just couldn't stop crying. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. It is Taj, aka MahTaj Massage, and this is MahTaj Midas Living. This video is gonna be a bit of a story time. I think this is my first story time video. Yeah, my first story time. And it is in relation to my previous video that was on spiritual warfare. And obviously with everything that's going on in the world, there is light and dark to everything, and today I want to focus on the light, and I want to talk about the story of when I experienced a real life miracle. If we vibe, please join the tribe and make sure that you like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you are notified of when I post new videos. Now let's get into the story. So this story took place quite a few years ago, about 14 years ago, something like that. I was 18 going on 19, and the only reason why I remember that so clearly is that I had a birthday while on this trip, and it was when I was in sixth form, and we went on a trip to Lourdes in France, aka the holy place where Bernadette was said to see the Virgin Mary. And the reason why I was on this trip is because I was there to volunteer for their Easter pilgrimage that happens there every year. And basically what we were there to do was to help different groups that are also there on the pilgrimage, whether it be help with their groups taking them to services, taking them to the holy baths, whether it was just to help out day to day with them doing excursions with their own groups, all those kind of things. We were just there to pretty much help, and also to worship too. So as I mentioned before, Lourdes is a holy place in France, and the reason why it is famous is because it is said to be the place where Bernadette, who was a young woman at the time, had visions of the Virgin Mary. So Bernadette had these visions while she was collecting firewood for her family, as she was part of a poor family. And while she had the vision of Mary, she was told to drink water from the spring beneath her feet. But beneath her feet, there was no water there, like none at all. And then the next day she goes back to the same place to collect firewood, and then there is a spring of water, and it is plentiful. When this happened, she was then advised during these visions again to build a chapel in that exact place where the spring had sprung, basically. Many miracles have said to have taken place at this site, and these have been confirmed by the International Medical Committee of Lourdes, and this was established in 1947. The purpose of this committee is basically to sift out the fakes and the frauds from the real miracles. There's meant to be 67 official miracles that have been claimed to be true at this site since this committee was established back then. And I believe the last one was either in the 70s or 80s, but I would probably double check that because I'm not 100% sure. And these also include things like people being cured of blindness, people who were paralyzed who can now walk again, so that they're classed as really big miracles. My one is nowhere near as massive as that, but it's still a little miracle to me. Whether you believe this is here nor there, but I just wanted to give my testimony of what I personally experienced as a miracle, as there is no other way I can explain it. Literally, I can't explain it as anything else but that. As I mentioned before, we had different jobs assigned to us while on this trip, and one of those was to help out at the baths. And at the baths at Lourdes, they are filled with the water from the springs, and people are prayed over and they are lowered into the bath and then lifted up again. And these are people of different ages, different levels of ability. People from all over the world come into this holy place to experience some kind of miracle or to feel closer to God, etc. It was honestly such a beautiful thing to see so many people with so much faith in them and so much love in their hearts, and that was given and received throughout the whole time that I was in Lourdes, and it was honestly beautiful. Most of the time, the people that we were helping to lower in the baths, even including some of the nuns that were there, couldn't really speak English. Some of them could, some of them couldn't, and the people that were coming in, many of them couldn't speak English. But it was so nice that even though there was that language barrier, everyone was still able to communicate with one another, whether it was through smiles or an arm on the shoulder and all those kind of things there. And words weren't even needed to know that there was so much love and faith in that space. And I'm so glad that I was able to be a part of that. From what I remember, the trip was 5 to 7 days. I can't remember if it was a full week or not. That's not important. But I remember my favorite day on that trip was when we did the baths, but it was the day when it was children. And honestly, anyone that knows me knows that I absolutely adore children, and it was such a blessing to be a part of that, to help with lowering the children into the baths and stuff with their parents, and that it was just honestly such a beautiful thing. I even remember there was this one little boy, I think he was French from what I remember. And obviously before you go in the baths, you have to take your clothes off, and then they wrap you in a sheet, and then they lower you into the bath and then bring you back up. And I remember trying to get him to take his shoes and socks off, and I was like, oh, I can't remember the word. And I remembered chaussure and chaussette is shoes and socks. Don't ask me which one's which, I just know that that's shoes and socks in French. So I was pointing at it and saying it to him, and he looked at me and smiled, and then he understood me. I was like, oh, he was so cute. He was the cutest little thing. I can literally see his face right now, even though it was so many years ago. But yeah, anyways, moving on from that. So it was the day we were working with children was my favorite day, because children are just honestly the best. And I think, actually no, I wouldn't say I think, I'm going to change that. I know that children see the light that I give off, and I don't even mean that in any kind of arrogant way or anything like that. I honestly don't mean it in that way, but I know that children see you for who you really are. Like they have this sixth sense. Maybe it's their level of innocence, or when you are a child you are naturally closer to God. Maybe it's that. Actually, it probably is that. And they see the light and darkness in you. And I know that children see my light, because children just tend to naturally like me. I've been babysitting since I was about 10. I've worked with children. Even now doing the work that I do as a massage therapist, I work with a lot of young people, and they just always seem to be drawn to me or open up to me naturally. Well, you know, when you're like on the bus and stuff and you see like a kid with their parent, and they always stare at me and smile at me and like make little jokes and stuff. It's just kind of always been like that. Even the other day, this little kid at the park, me and my sister were at the park, just minding our own business, having a little picnic. And the cutest little boy, like he was so adorable, came out of nowhere and was talking to us, and he gave me a little daisy. He's like, oh, I got this for you. And I was just like, my heart is melting. But anyways, that's off on a tangent. So where was I? Oh yeah, so we were at the baths. So it got to a point where we'd done our job and finished doing the baths for the day, and they said that we could have the opportunity to have one of the baths ourselves. And I was like, I really, really want to do this. Like, when am I going to have the opportunity to come to Lourdes again and experience this? So I thought, you know what, why not? I'm open to this. I also remember on this day, I had this really irritating rash on my neck. It was kind of like here on my neck. I don't know what the rash was. I don't know what caused it, but it was really irritating me probably for 2 or so days on that trip. It came out of nowhere. Don't know what caused it, what triggered it, but it was really, really itchy and irritating me. And that is important to the story, FYI. So it came to my turn now to go in the bath. I got myself undressed and everything. They wrapped me in these special linens, brought me forwards toward the bath. And I remember they asked me, what do you want us to pray about? Like, what do you want to get out of this experience? And I just said, can you please pray over me, my family, and the people that I love and care about? I just want you to pray for their safety and pray for them to be on the right path, and pray for my safety and to be on the right path, and just to kind of be at one with God kind of thing. I don't remember exactly what I asked for because this was about 14 years ago. So then they were all praying over me, and then it was time to dip me in the bath. So I'm kind of in this position, but I've got the linens around me, and then they lower me in like this, all the way back into the water, like head in, everything. And then they bring me up. And then I was just overcome with emotion, like bawling my eyes out, like uncontrollable tears just streaming out of my eyes. You know, when you're like, I was literally like that. And I just couldn't stop crying, like crying. I'm a crybaby anyways. Actually, I wasn't really back then, but in that moment I was a massive crybaby. And I don't know what exactly came over me, but I knew that I felt God's presence there and then. It's like the Holy Spirit came inside me. That's probably the only way to explain it. And it's not until looking back on it now, for me, that was like my second baptism, like unintentionally, but that's what it was for me. And I only realized this within the last week of filming this video, or prior to filming this video, when I was doing my research into spiritual warfare and kind of delving into this series, that I was looking back and I was like, oh my gosh, that time in Lourdes was definitely a second baptism for me. So as I said, I was there bawling my eyes out, literally sobbing my heart out, and the volunteers and the nuns were just like hugging me, like holding me. So I'm still in the water, but they've lifted me up now, so I'm kind of in this position, and they're like behind me, holding on to me, hugging me, comforting me, and I'm just crying and crying. I can't even tell you how long I was crying for. It felt like a really long time. It might not have been, I don't know what it was. I could have been crying for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, literally only God knows, because I can't remember. I just remember it felt like I was crying for the longest time, and then kind of subsided, and then I was okay. They pulled me out of the baths and I just went back into the changing room part and kind of got on with my day. That moment in itself for me was a miracle, because I can't even explain what it was. I don't know what was going through my mind. I just know that I felt extremely emotional, but I also felt extremely close to God all at the same time. And then something else that happened later on in the day, following on from being submerged, remember that rash that I told you about? It literally disappeared without a trace. God's honest truth, it literally disappeared without a trace. There was no marks of it. There was no remnants of there being a rash there. It was like it was never there in the first place. And I know it was that special water in Lourdes that did that for me and healed me. This was probably like an hour after being in the baths that the rash disappeared, considering I'd had it for about 2 days and it was irritating as hell. And then the next thing, gone without a trace. So that was my miraculous experience that I wanted to share with you of my time in Lourdes. Also, side note, that water from the springs is the best water I have ever tasted in my whole life. And I'm a massive water drinker. I just looked at the time then on the video, and the timestamp was 22:22. Honestly, the way God works is just amazing and beautiful to see. But anyways, I got sidetracked. Yeah, the water in Lourdes is the best water I've ever had in my life, because basically what they've got there outside, they've got all these taps that are connected to the spring, so you can just fill up your bottle with water. You can either fill up like little holy bottles and have them as kind of souvenirs, and also just something to bring home, so you've got something that represents God for you to have in your home. I actually still have mine, and I gave some as gifts to like family members and stuff, but you could also bottle it and drink it as well, and it was the best water I've ever had in my life. And someone who drinks water knows the difference between different types of water. Like, they can taste if it's tap water or if it's bottled water, etc. And if you don't, you're not drinking enough water. But that is the best water I've ever had in my life. But yeah, that's the story of my miracle in Lourdes. I hope you've enjoyed the story. Have you experienced any miracles in your life? I would like to know. Let me know in the comments below. Also, again, please like and subscribe to the channel and share it with anyone you think my content will resonate with. And I will see you in the next video.